Welcome, fake nerds. We're going back to Middle Earth. It's finally time for the most expensive television show ever made, The Lord of the Rings of Power. Amazon has taken a risky bet, and we're here to talk about if it has paid off or not. I am Sparks Whitty. I am joined, of course, by my friend Ryan Eliopoulos.
Hello, it's me. I'm the Ring of Power.
And, of course, my friend Brandon T. McClure.
Hello, I'm here too.
And my acquaintance, Ben Magnet.
Oh.
Well, screw you! I was going to tell you guys, I found this weird-ass key. We should probably go exploring for something, but no, guess not. You guys are all going to stay alone. Whatever treasure I find is mine. Bye, bitches.
You're going to need to do a test of endurance to seek out to fix this friendship.
My
friend, out a bunch of rocks.
My friend, Ben Magnet, as well. And we're here to talk about the first 4 episodes because there's just too much dang content and none of us make money doing this. For The Lord of the Rings of Power, they are A Shadow of the Past, Adrift, Adar, and The Great Wave.
A lot of water.
We are recording this on a day where the 5th episode has come out, but we're not talking about that one yet.
Wait, is today Friday?
Yeah, today's Friday.
Oh, no! That's
honestly,
okay.
before we start, I was this close to watching the 5th episode last night. If I didn't have a writing deadline that I needed to finish this morning, I would have watched it just for shits and giggles. I am glad I did not, because that assignment got me up till 5 a.m. So thank God for wake-up juice.
I will say, I'm so glad we did this the first 4, because there's no way in hell I would have watched episode 5, because it took me so damn long to get through these 4 episodes. Not for the reason you think. I kept pausing it to look up lore. Every 20 minutes, I'd be like, oh, wait, hold on. I want to look something up real quick. And I just spend time on the Wikipedia.
I am just Brandon, I'm just imagining you in the place you're in right now, surrounded by Tolkien books and appendices, and just pausing and flipping through the Silmarillion, like, which one is going on now?
Yeah, there's a lot of history in these minds.
We have a comment from Everything in Middle Earth.
Hello.
Damn, that was
sir.
quick.
I really loved how Isildur didn't report a domestic terrorist because he wanted to go on the boat to Middle Earth. We'll get there.
Oh, yeah. We literally just started, friends. So, we'll get into everything. Oh, yeah.
So, I guess we should start with episode 1.
Well, let's talk about what we thought about it. How about that? 'Cause who knows?
Just the whole or just the first episode?
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna do this in episode breakdowns because it's 4 episodes. I think we should probably talk about characters. But before we get there, yes, I want to hear how people feel about the show. Ryan and I know because we were there together, absorbed this in one single day because we just couldn't stop. So I guess that tells you how we feel about the show. Yeah, that was real good. I could not stop watching.
Yeah, especially nice big TV. We've talked about it before, yes, this is the most expensive show ever made, but putting money behind something doesn't mean it's always going to look good. Look at some of the recent Marvel stuff. Sometimes it doesn't always look good, right? This show is stunning in every conceivable word. It is every frame of painting, that all mean, right? Especially that first episode when we're doing some first aid shit, which was really cool and unexpected. Really cool. I just every new place we go to, and I'm like, damn, they really did it. You specifically said wow, they really did it.
Yeah.
It feels much like Hot D, but visually 1,000 times better. HBO usually has a budget. Amazon gave them the budget. I love more than anything. I love looking at this show because they got that aspect 200% right. I love it.
Ben?
Oh God, I absolutely love the show. Yeah. I am 100% in love with the show. You're right. This show has the budget. It has the budget. It has the money. It looks absolutely stunning. There are so many shots in the show that when I'm watching this, I'm like, cinema. You have these great slow-mo shots. The shot that goes into mind is the I want to call it the nightmare scene where Numenor's downfall, the big crashing wave. Everything about the show is great. I love how Khazad-dûm looks. I love how Valinor looks. I just love everything about it. And I'm watching the freaking prequel to Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. I can definitely see how this can translate into Peter Jackson's world, even though it's technically not connected. I don't care. I love it. I'm having absolute blast. I'm just loving all the super hard to pronounce names. I love how everything is being spoken. Just everything about the show is like, this is amazing. This is great. All your racists, GTFO. This is amazing.
100%.
To what Ben said real quick, just they are doing everything in their power to make this connect
The Rings of Power
with aesthetically to lead to the Jackson films. This is very much supposed to be like, they're not trying to take it in their own visual direction away from that. They want it visually to feel like it's of a piece with it.
They have, I think, successfully walked the line of not making it look like the Jackson films, but also making it look like it could, because they can't. Rights issues prevent them from doing so, because they only have the rights to the Lord of the Rings dependencies. MGM has the rights to the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Like they cannot make them look like those films due to rights issues. And I think what they've done is is look at that and go like, okay, but how close can we get without legalities kind of hurting us a bit? And I think that's really cool. And I think they've successfully done that.
Well, and there's not really anything that needs to look exactly like the Jackson films, because we're in a completely different age and setting. So it doesn't have to look exactly the same, but it does look like the precursor of those things. And you have the same visual concept artists from the Jackson films working on it. So everything, it feels of a piece. It is irrelevant. It is
having Howard Shore be involved too also helps on TV bit as well to bring
that main theme is that main theme song is great. It's like, this is definitely Lord of the Rings. I mean, obviously he composed the original trilogy films. If I'm not mistaken, he also composed The Hobbit. I could be wrong.
I think so.
But, I mean, I should probably look at it. But either way, everything about the show is amazing. I absolutely love it. This is definitely one of the shows where I definitely look forward to the weekends. Like, there's a new episode of Rings of Power. There's a new episode of House of the Dragon. Just give me the fantasy shit in my veins already.
Yeah, it's really spectacular that we have two super high budget fantasy shows that are polar opposites of each other. And they're both doing them so well. Like Hot D, House of the Dragon is very, very quote unquote real, grounded in like human betrayal and human emotion, and like there's fantasy stuff, but it's not the point. Whereas Lord of the Rings is about like archetypes and like beautiful character stuff, and like beautiful, like the visuals are important, and like you have dragons and eagles fighting each other, and a really cool flashback scene that I wish it lasted a lot longer. But
specifically something of a piece with Tolkien's work, and then obviously it's present in the Jackson films visually because of the faithfulness to Tolkien's work, is the focus on nature. And that being such a focus on the presence of nature in the tone of the show, in the tone of Middle Earth, how important that is. That's aesthetically a huge difference from House of the Dragon, which I'm just happy to have.
So I'm going to be a bit of a damp blanket, not a wet blanket. I'm going to be a damp blanket because I like the show. I like the show. I think aesthetically it's gorgeous. I think I really like how a lot of the dialogue is written. I'm not in love with a lot of the characters though. And that's kind of becoming an issue for me 4 episodes in. It is getting a little bit better as we go forward, but I'm not eager to watch the next episode right now. I thought I would be. I really like the show on a lore perspective. I really like the lore of Lord of the Rings, and I'm really interested in a show that goes further into it, especially in this age that we don't know a lot about. And I like that. And I like that for that aspect. And that's what's most engaging for me is the lore of this show. As far as the characters go, I like probably half of them a lot, and I find them very compelling. And the other half, I'm not quite there yet.
Sure.
And I would agree with you. There is one character I'm not the biggest fan of, but not for lack of trying. But I do want to see how we'll talk about it. We'll talk about them later. But I agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Until we talk about it, I'm pretty good with all the characters. There's definitely some that are lower than others, but like there are different threads happening, and I do want to see what's happening in all the threads. That is the thing with shows like this, or again, like other big shows and big ensembles. Like you have to have all the pieces matter on the chessboard, and like they are building to something, and we don't know what it is yet, so I trust them. But I am enjoying where all the pieces are currently moving for the most part, personally. Except for one, I will say there is one episode where now that this is 8 episodes, correct?
Yes.
Okay. There's one aspect of the show I'm like, you needed to take this character out for a long period of time, and I get it. And I thought the way they did it was maybe a little boring, but besides that, I have no real issues with how they're handling character stuff.
Should we start with that character?
On the raft for almost the whole episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it. I like all the characters except for one. There's a single character that I'm curious about the story where they're going. I just don't give a shit about the person whatsoever. And then the rest I like. It's Theo. Don't give a shit about Theo. He's a shitty boy.
Sauron Dagger Kid?
Yeah. I think he's a shitty little boy. Don't give a shit about him. But I'm interested in like what will end up happening with his story.
So yeah, I would agree. I'm not maybe as bad, but he's certainly like whatever. But I care about him because like the people he's tied to, because I know they care about him. Yeah. So like it is kind of all weaved together. Although he is kind of like a bit.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned, like it does kind of get better for me. Like the characters do become more compelling as the show goes on. So I am probably going to change my tune the next time we do this. Like I firmly believe by the end of these 8 episodes, I'll be totally on board with a lot of these characters. Like because when it started, I was really only interested in Nori. Like the first 2 episodes, I was like, yeah, Nori's story is the most interesting to me. I'm so compelled by this. I want to see more of this. I'm really loving this. And then I was not really into Galadriel. I didn't really like her being on the raft for the whole time. Then the Numenor episode, I really like Galadriel, and I really like Nori, and I really like Galadriel. And so like as it goes on, I'm getting more compelled with different characters as we continue. And so like right now where we're at. There's just characters that I'm not quite there yet.
Like Durin, the dwarf.
I like Durin.
Okay.
I just didn't say. I was only saying as examples. I just didn't say.
Saying like I think there are characters who easily fall by the wayside, and you didn't mention the one character who I think is the MVP of the show right now. I think Durin and his wife and what's happening with Elrond is really fun and fascinating. And talking about lore, this is about Mithril. That is the lore of Lord of the Rings. So to me, that is the most fascinating thing. And I love seeing their friendship. And like, I want to know more about them, specifically how elves deal with time. And he's like, oh, it was only 20 years. Like, bro, that's an entire lifetime. Like that scene specifically tore me up. That was so good. Yeah. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Shoot, I had something I totally forgot. Anyways, do you want me to go into the chat? Because we got some people in the chat right now.
I guess so.
Heck yeah.
So Nikki is in the chat. Hi, Nikki. Isildur lives to be over 2,000 years old.
I have a theory about that.
Yeah. Is Isildur one of the Dunedain? I have no idea.
Isildur is Aragorn's descendant. He's the one who didn't throw the Ring of Power into the volcano.
Yeah.
Ancestors. All right, thank you, ancestor. I think what they've done is they've condensed, because between Isildur's birth and the creation of the Rings of Powers are thousands of years. I think what they've done is just whoop.
Brandon's correct. The showrunners have not been secretive about this. They've said they condensed the timeline to make it more functional for the show because they didn't want to stretch a show across thousands of years.
Yeah, we are going to
for all the bullet points that they wanted to touch on.
I suspect that this will be a Rogue One situation where they will literally lead into that battle with Isildur and these new characters, and it'll be like a dope ass like finale. Like
I think so too.
Years from now, I'm like, that's hella exciting.
But I think specifically tying the Rings of Power. That's actually a good point that I wanted to get to. I think tying the Rings of Power's creation to the destruction of Numenor, to Isildur coming to the Middle Earth, to the last Legion, having that all kind of be much closer together. Beside like Tolkien's timelines are so vast and there's like thousands of years when nothing happens. So like condensing all of that, I think was a smart move, especially with how lore heavy they want the show to be. Yeah. I think ultimately it's going to pay off in their favor.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at things in like the first and second age, it's a lot of like, here is a story in a microcosm of one of the groups of people, and we'll follow it, and it happened at this point. Meanwhile, hundreds of years later, here's a different group. Like, and you just like you'd be doing such an anthological show where Galadriel like makes an appearance briefly every like 3 episodes or something like that. If you were trying to like really stay true to the timeline, and I think it would be very hard to find the show as engaging. It would feel like anecdotal history taking. So it's not a 100% like faithful adaptation of like the timeline necessarily, but there are things about the Jackson films that are not necessarily like Aragorn never in the books had any problems with becoming king. It's not something he was like not wanting to do. That was a thing invented for the film.
He
that
didn't
worked for the
Jon Snow
character
it,
in the film.
yeah.
So like, but like, you know, this is not new to make some changes to the adaptation to make it more compelling in a film.
And I believe the beginning of from when Gandalf first shows up in The Hobbit to the next time he shows up with the dwarves is about 50 years.
Yeah, something like that.
It's a long time, and the Jackson films just condensed that to just be a couple of days.
I think with a show like this and how expensive it is, like I think even if Galadriel, like if she's more prominent than she is in the histories, I think it's because you need someone of that like that stature of a character, him or her or Eldon or someone. You need someone like that to help carry the show, because I don't think it would be easy for a lot of people to try to jump in somewhere that's thousands of years in the past with just Nori. I don't think as many people would be as like, oh shit, Galadriel's here. Oh, I know that person. Like, I think that is an important part of like how Hollywood business is made, but I think it's a good change because I think Galadriel's cool.
Yeah. Let's use that to piggyback into talking about characters. We'll start with Galadriel, who is arguably like the main character of the new show. Real quick, I'll just touch on Marty's comment because we know Marty watched the first two, then kind of dropped interest. Marty! Like them, but nothing has been pulling him back. I really hope you continue, Marty. I think you'd actually like the next episodes even more.
Yeah, once Numenor gets involved and stuff, like, yeah, I think that's good stuff.
And Durin's home.
Yeah, the dwarf stuff. Yeah.
Really pursuing that. Anyway, we'll talk about Galadriel first. I think they've done something interesting with Galadriel. I don't know if they'll ever bring it up in the show, but when Galadriel has the opportunity to go back to Valinor much earlier than this point, at least in the books initially. But the whole thing is that she wants to be a ruler. That's a thing. She has a passion to be the ruler of the elves. And it's interesting. Like, this is one of those things when we were watching the first episode where I was like, that king wants her out of here so bad. Because she's older than almost everyone there. We don't know exactly who all the elves are yet that are there right now, but Galadriel's definitely among the oldest of all of them because she comes all the way from early in the First Age. And it's going to be interesting to see how much that this focus on like hunting down Sauron is not necessarily not true to her nature of the books, but like really taking her on an angle. Specifically, this thing with the brother is an invention for the show, rather than her passion for staying in Middle Earth being about wanting to like guide the future of the elves and rule over them and project forward what they were going to be in Middle Earth. So it'll be interesting to see how that character unfolds. Some have already noted
angsty period.
Some have already noted a really interesting parallel and something that I think will pay off if you watch, like when this show is done, you watch the show, you get to her point where she is offered the ring and she, refuses it. Uncertain up to that point if she would. And she is like the opposite of Aragorn in our Jackson films, right? Aragorn never wanted to be the leader. Galadriel has always wanted to be a leader. And so it'll be interesting to see how that dichotomy might play out with her. I really like the actor a lot. I really like the way that we open on the focus on her. I think it works really well. I'm a big fan of how they did the first episode with the bookends of the conversation with her brother and the choice of which path to follow. And I personally have no problem with her on a raft in episode 2, mostly because of 3 things. One, we have so many other characters we're focusing on. I didn't feel like it was like taking up a crap ton of time to leave her there. 2, she literally was right at the edge of Valinor. It would take some time to get across the Sundering Sea back the other direction.
Very true.
And we are introduced to Halbrand, who's going to be really important. So we don't know exactly who Halbrand is. There's an amount of a mystery of the show is who is Sauron. That's going to be a mystery of the show is who's showing up, who is Sauron, because the only thing that's written about this time of Sauron's appearance is that he would show up to people in fair form. Fair form is left to your imagination. There's no specification of who Sauron appeared as before. Like, we don't know. He just showed up in a fair form. So there's already you can feel the show, especially with Adar, playing with the idea of who is Sauron before we see him.
He's got like a Sauron.
He's got the gauntlet just like his.
Well, we also know that he helps Celebrimbor create the Rings of Power. So eventually he'll. but eventually they'll meet.
Right. So that's a part of the mystery of the show. So for some, Halbrand was kind of early on, people wondering, could this be Sauron? Could this be Sauron right away? Like I think they're playing with a really interesting idea of what I did like about the Elf King sending Galadriel away, the idea that if she stays, she may inadvertently create the very evil she's seeking. Yeah. Lead to its revival, and the idea that Halbrand could be tied into that. I will present, now that we know Halbrand is a king in the Southlands, I will say that I'm very much ascribed to the theory that he is not only a Nazgul but the Witch King. Yep. The leader of the Nazgul. And I think that's who we might be seeing.
By the way, I just found out that Isildur became a Nazgul after he was killed.
Oh, shitty, right?
Yeah, that sucks.
What do you deserve, bro?
So that's a possibility, but we'll see where that goes. Anyway, all of Galadriel's stuff, her chasing down the symbol, the way that they did this symbol, the way it is formed onto the map. A lot of our like reminders of the flash of the eye, the flash of the fire, the flash of the symbol, and the way that it shows where Mordor is going to be.
Oh my god, that blew my!
That was an incredible.
It was such a simple reveal, but like in like a fun fantasy world, it's like you just turn the map sideways and it's like everything's revealed. I'm like, yeah, it felt cool.
The second the Galadriel finds out that that the sigil isn't a sigil, it's actually a part of the map, and I was like, that's freaking Mordor. Holy shit, this is before Mordor. I knew this took place before the Third Age, and I was like, how far into, like, how obviously thousands upon thousands and thousands of years before the films start, before the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. And I'm just sitting there. I'm that's what I love about this show. It's like, hey, all the stuff you remember, like when the second they bring in Isildur, I'm like, oh shit, I know what happens to you. I'm sorry, my guy. I actually kind of like you. But then you like when the reveal of like what Mordor will eventually become, I'm like, oh no.
See, that was the second. That was the reveal of Mordor and actually Isildur being in the show, because I had no idea. He was in the show. When I saw Isildur, that's when I realized, I was like, oh, they're condensing. But Mordor's creation, I didn't realize, because like I just don't know that much about Lord of the Rings lore. Like a lot of this I'm seeing for the first time, that Mordor was kind of a failsafe that Morgoth put out there to Sauron, just like, hey, when I die, when the Valar take me back because I'm one of them and I screwed everything up, build Mordor.
And Mordor is created out of the Southlands, so out of the home of the people who the group of men, their ancestors, who led the betrayal in one of the biggest fights against Morgoth. There was like this one fight long before they actually defeat Morgoth. There was this one big battle where like they really had him. He was on the ropes and everything, and then this whole clan of men betrayed everybody else. And it essentially creates. There had never been a point before that where like men and elves had distrust with each other. Mm-hmm. It essentially creates the foundation of why elves don't trust all men, because no elves ever did that. You know, no elves ever betrayed each other like that.
Yeah.
But they saw that men did, even though there were other men who fought with them. They saw that some men did, and that created that foundation of it. And so it's really messed up that these are the guys who were like they chose their side in that fight. They've been living in that for this whole time, and then their homes get wiped out to create Mordor, which is what we're watching happen.
And so like this is one of the first one of the big times where I had my pause and look up lore thing, because I was like, then where did Minas Tirith come from, and Gondor and Rohan, where did they come from? And I learned a lot about Numenor that day.
Yeah.
Yes. Speaking of Numenor,
oh god, Numenor.
How you feel about that queen and her old sick king, old sick daddy?
I really like Numenor. I really like when we go there. I think that location is stunning. I think one of the things that really stood out to me about the first couple of episodes that changes with Numenor is I wasn't quite sure where the budget went, because I saw the like Lindon, right? That's Lindon. The elf capital is Lindon.
Yes. Lindon.
We see that place, and it's kind of just, they're kind of like hiding the set like making the set look a little bit bigger than it really is. You know, they're using like really small locations. I was like, okay, fine. You know, you're using the set wisely and blah blah blah. And we've seen Casa Doom, but that was mostly green screen, and we saw Celebrimbor's location. What's that place called?
Ergion. Something
Sure.
like that.
His pad. Celebrimbor's pad.
But a lot of the places not all of them, mind you, like I'm kind of overgeneralizing, which I kind of shouldn't be, but like we kind of saw mostly like green screen, mostly like CGI vistas, but like Numenor felt like a big open set of just like gorgeous architecture and scenery. Like really felt something tactile that you can feel and you could like be there. Like, and I think that was really like the biggest time where I felt like, right, this is what Peter Jackson did so well with Minas Tirith, or something like that, something big, something wide, something open, something tactile that you can feel like you can go to. And that's what Numenor felt like to me. Like I was like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for.
I agree, and I will also take that down to the dwarves as well in Kazakh Doom, because we have that first establishing shot when Elrond's going down the elevator, big green screen, big CGI, beautiful stuff, right? But then we go inside Durin's house, his big ass house, and it's just lots of stone shit, lots of dwarf shit, and they're going into mines, and that's all like they had to build those sets, they had to build those mines, and I'm like, yeah, baby, like it is so nice that obviously you can't, especially with fantasy shit, you can't do practical all the time, which is the dream of any fan of film or whatever, right? But like when you're able to mix them so well together as much as you can, it's really impressive, and everything looks so lived in. Like it's so much attention to detail. Like everyone who's working on the show is like putting their heart into it, and it shows.
Oh, yeah. I really like when we go to Numenor and the reveal of Elendil. When we first like, oh, this is Elendil, and I was like, and there's only a few times where they do what I call like the Marvel reveal, where it's like, this is a character, and it's when Celebrimbor shows up and when Elendil shows up. Yeah. And I was like, but Celebrimbor, I was like, oh, that's Celebrimbor, cool. And then Elendil shows up, I'm like, wait, who's Elendil? I was like, and I had to look that one up. I was like, oh, right, I know this name.
It's like, who the heck is that? Oh, that's the King of Gondor who dies.
Sorry,
no.
shit.
No, that's Isildur.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I mean, because his father dies and just against Sauron first, and then Isildur takes up his father's sword, cuts his hand off, and then
not technically, but I won't go into it.
All right. Sorry, I'm going off movie stuff. I should be going off book stuff more.
No, it's actually kind of crazy because like I spent the whole third episode wondering to myself, like, since you're bringing it up just quickly, like I spent the whole third episode like wondering, okay, wait, so how did Gondor? Because if there's no kingdoms of men on Middle Earth, how did Gondor be created? And I found out that yes, Elendil was responsible for a mass migration from Numenor to Middle Earth, which created Gondor and Rohan and like the major kingdoms of Earth. He was never really the king of Gondor. Isildur always was. He ruled like two major kingdoms. Isildur and Isildur's brother, who gets a name drop in the fourth episode we haven't actually met yet. They rule two kingdoms in Middle Earth under him.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's kind of interesting.
Celebrimbor, current side character, past main character of two separate video games that are pretty good. I have a pre-order hammer. I have the hammer that makes the Rings of Power, which are, and those games take place in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. So I really hope it's the same hammer, because if it is, that's going to be pretty cool.
We see they've created the hammer from Feanor, who created the Silmarils, and is like, it's really funny because like Celebrimbor is idolizing Feanor, and like if you know the story of Feanor and what happened with the Silmarils, like Feanor kind of leads a whole section of elves to ruin, and like all his, because they all basically swear that they are going to take the Silmarils back from Morgoth as their family bloodline, or die trying, and they're all held to this blood oath. and the rest of the elves and like a whole other faction of elves are just like Jesus, because like they'll do it at any cost, and it goes down the lineage of Feanor for a very long time that they are just like bound to be fighting Morgoth forever as mortal enemies and causing war and devastation within Middle Earth, which is like, ugh, God.
So there's an interesting thing that you just said there, which leads me to something that I thought I was misreading, but I actually don't think so anymore. There's something nefarious about Celebrimbor in this show. He's very much kind of giving off like, I'm not divulging everything. But
I feel I see what you mean. I it could be leaning to that right now. I just feel like his whole thing is like, I want to make the best of the best, and I haven't done that yet. I want to make the ultimate project, and I will do it at any means necessary. But he doesn't even know what the means are yet, I don't think. But like, it reads as nefarious, but like to him, it's more like it's evil without being evil yet. So I can't call it nefarious.
Oh no, I don't mean evil. I did not mean to say evil. I don't think he's evil, and I think what's happening is we're seeing the early kind of, because he was tricked into making the rings, and that was something that Sauron was like, yeah, it would be great if like all these rings, wouldn't that be cool? And
for everyone,
so like I think what he is determined to kind of do what Feanor did, because he's like talked about Feanor reverently when he's like, it was the only time that Morgoth, the closest time that Morgoth ever turned or whatever. Like he turned Morgoth's heart, and I've never made anything that beautiful or that wonderful or whatever. And so he's kind of, his obsession with kind of doing that is going to lead him down the path of creating the rings of power. And I think what he doesn't quite know is that what's coming off of him is kind of that energy of that obsessionness. It's not necessarily I'm actually evil. Yeah. It's that like, I'm not really revealing how obsessed with this I am. Maybe not even to myself.
He's the cinematographer from Nope. He's going to do anything to get that one shot.
Yeah.
I think that specifically, like, I want to touch on what you were saying. Like, I've never made anything that beautiful. I've never made anything that wonderful. I've never made anything that powerful. And that's the line that's like, okay, Celebrimbor. So there's two possibilities, which is either this is his inherent desire is to be that, but like, again, like it's so jarring to me that like he's clearly enamored with Feanor, but like he doesn't think about any of the pitfalls of like what happens.
He sees only the highs, not the lows.
He sees only the highs and not the lows. Yeah. But we could find out that already Sauron is whispering in his ear.
Yeah. I would be shocked. They're doing like this whole like who Sauron thing. Like it would be cool if not like a big character reveal like a scroll, but like he has been here the whole time. We just didn't know it. And he's like almost like the Emperor, been like, yeah, I've been like, you guys have been doing what I wanted you to do the whole time, and I haven't had to be here the whole time. Or something.
There's almost a level of like, I'm sure they'll find their own way to handle it. There's almost a desire in me to not know who Sauron is. As he appears in the show, not be given the definitive answer.
I think
like, that was Sauron.
Bold and fun. Yeah. If you only ever see him like when he's like helmeted and shit. Yeah.
There's a part of me that very much feels that way, where like, because again, like you are never given clear definition. Like he was secretly, this version, this depiction.
What it would be like super cheesy and like I would love, but like he has so many followers. Let's say like like Adar and like the Eminem looking guy and somebody else. He's like, yeah, they are Sauron. We are all Sauron, or something like that. Where it's like kind of like like they all worship him, so like they think that they are him or whatever. I'm like, I could see that like a cult kind of thing. Like, yeah, That's a good. I don't need to see Sauron now that we're here. I think that'd be really fun.
At first I thought Adar was Sauron for a while, because it's like I see this elf and I'm like, and I'm thinking, is this Sauron? Could this be like the guy? And actually, cool. I kind of like your
the tell though is that he's elf. Sauron's not an elf,
right?
And so that's the thing that I think was what would be interesting is if what you guys are saying, like we don't ever get a definitive answer that this was Sauron, because should the next time we see Sauron, he's in his armor, we wouldn't see his face anyway. And so that's the only time we actually see Sauron. And so we never get the definitive answer of who exactly was it that was whispering into Celebrimbor's ear? Who exactly was it that was doing all these things in the Southlands? Who was Sauron going out as? Because if we only ever see him in his armor, that'd be kind of cool.
Because he is a sorcerer, so like he could be doing sorcery shit to like change the appearance anyway. So like I think it would be better if we leave it like a mystery almost.
It's very interesting how like just Brand's definition of like Sauron is not an elf, is like, I don't know, because like the whole thing is that it's just never said. Sauron shows up in the first age. He just shows up, like he's just suddenly mentioned.
If he lives a long time,
he lives as long.
He's according to Tolkien, he's an Aenir. He's kind of what Gandalf is. Like he's a demigod because Morgoth creates him.
Yeah. So it's weird because like it's so sparse how Sauron comes in, but he's been Morgoth's lieutenant since the first age. This is a fact. So when we see like that shot in episode 1 where like we already see him in his armor and everything, it's, you know, like that's the weird thing about this show and like how his appearance into their lives is going to be, is because Sauron's already been in the armor. Sauron's already been doing this. This has all already happened. He tortured people through the first age to help win victories for Morgoth. He has been around and been this presence. And now it will be perceiving him in some, so like he could show up as an elf, right? Because the whole idea is that he shows up in fair form, and it's truly not whatever he naturally looks like, because it's not going to be something that would like throw them off. Some have suspected that possibly the stranger could be Sauron, and I would throw that right out just because I don't think they'd be doing a story about Sauron having been there, then going back up, then coming back down, and I don't think that's what we're doing.
The thing that I also don't buy that either, because like Tolkien always described, Tolkien never said that there was such a thing as true evil, but if there was, Sauron got as close to it.
Right.
And so that's how he always described him. And the stranger is too kind. Honestly, like he's not the most kind person, but he's got a heart, and I don't think Sauron would be around with Harfoots.
So I 100% agree, and I don't want this to happen. But there is a weird like, again, like Winter Soldier, the enemy was with us the whole time, we didn't know it thing. Of like, we go like 7 episodes in, and like somebody gives a speech of how like we know Sauron's next appearance will be blah 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 blah, and it'll come from the sky, and then it'll be a reveal of like the stranger like finally comes to his senses or something. And it would be like a big reveal. But again, I don't want that because I think it's cooler that he's just a nice wizard who doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that he could be Gandalf?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
I don't think the stranger is any wizard we know in the Jackson films. I don't think he's Radagast. I don't think he's Saruman. I don't think he's Gandalf.
Well, because like he couldn't be, as we know. Understandably, like the Balrog is in the show, and the Balrog isn't found until the Third Age either. But the Third Age was marked by the creation of the wizards. Like the wizards came to Middle Earth at the beginning of the Third Age by the Valar. So to move that to the Second Age, to even close to the end of the Second Age, would be weird, right?
So yes, but here's the thing: with them condensing time, the Second Age isn't thousands of years. The Second Age is going to be 5 seasons in 20 years.
Well, the second age is still thousands of years. We have still lived like at least 1,000 or more.
Yeah.
With Galadriel hunting Sauron.
No, I'm talking about where we are right now with Isildur being.
No. I get you. I get you. I'm just saying, like we are at the tail end now of the Second Age. Right?
That's what I mean. So it starting at the Third Age could also just mean at the very end of the Second Age. That's what I was saying.
That's a good point. Like that's a good point. Like I'm not putting it past them that they would do that. I just think that it would be interesting because Gandalf came with, because the show is so like lore reverential. Like it is very much it is condensing lore, but it is very much like, you know, the lore of Tolkien is very important to the show. So to kind of change that and have Gandalf be have Gandalf be the only wizard to show up, and not have all 5 of them show up at the same time, would kind of just seem like a weird change to make, just going off of what these people have talked about with the show.
So there is already a theory out there that this is one of the blue wizards, and that through a trick of what we were seeing in the first episode, we actually weren't seeing 1 come down, we were seeing 2.
Oh.
And so we just haven't seen where the second one landed. So rather than that having been 1 coming across the sky because of the vastness of
Okay,
where
we saw
characters are
every
in Middle Earth.
character look
Right,
at it.
but like, did we see every character look at the exact same one?
Exactly.
Is the question that some people are saying, and at the end of the season, when we find out that the other one landed somewhere else, which would be the two blue wizards who come in at the same time.
But I do want to say, should they change it to be that the wizards have come at the end of the second age instead of the beginning of the third age? Should it be that the wizards here, blue, whatever? If it is Gandalf, I actually quite like the idea that this is why Gandalf likes hobbits so much.
Sure.
Actually, to be perfectly honest, earlier when you guys asked if it was Gandalf, I think it's 100% Gandalf, to be perfectly honest, because of how he is found by the Harfoots, how he is found by Nori, and how he has such an affection for the hobbits. So I think it is, but I do like that this could be one of the blue wizards, one of the wizards we haven't seen yet. But at the same time, I'm still glad that that the show hasn't completely tipped their hand of saying who exactly the stranger is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
so that Marty agreed with me in the chat too. But like the second we saw him, I'm like, oh, that's good. That's got to be Gandalf. That's got to be some wizard. Has to be. To me, it says it has to be. If you change it up, I'm gonna be okay with it. I'm not gonna be upset about it. But I'm still thinking it's like that's Gandalf.
I personally, I don't want it to be Gandalf. I think there are a lot of like lore stretches they can do. I just think this is one where I'm like, you don't need this one would be a little fancier for me.
I agree. There are a handful of wizards that have never been put on the live action screen that we have not seen. There's no reason this has to be Gandalf.
The only thing that I push myself back and like something that like he's a white wizard with a beard, and they could have made him look like anything else. So I'm like, that makes me think maybe they will do that, but I just hope they don't, personally.
Yeah.
I just want
I mean, it wouldn't be. It would be interesting to see the reveal of him, and he is definitely he's definitely a wizard. It could be, it honestly could be, because like we've talked about before, how this age isn't really. There's not a lot written about this age. That it could be a wizard we don't know. Maybe the Valar sent a wizard prior to sending the 5 wizards to the third age. Maybe they sent one at the end of the second age. Yeah. Who's to say?
I personally, I want because it is a prequel so far in the past, even though there are characters who live a long time, I don't want more Lord of the Rings. I want more Rings of Power.
Right.
So like there's a lot of stuff that I know they have to bring in. It's like the same world, but like we don't need to fan service it up. Like we don't have to turn this into Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like at least the first season, like let us just breathe.
I don't think I do want to push back a little bit on that, Ben, if you don't mind. Not much, because I don't want to belabor this point. I want to move on. But I don't think including Gandalf specifically would be too much fan service, because he would be the last character that could conceivably be alive at this time, because he is also immortal. And after that, there's no one else.
Saruman.
Well, I mean, if there's other wizards, like I'm just saying specifically, like
I would rather it be Saruman than Gandalf, to be honest.
Well, I'm only saying Gandalf to say if it is a wizard that we've already met before, Radagast, Saruman, Gandalf, the Blues, whatever. The idea, like, they would be the last characters who could ever appear in this show that were also in the Lord of the Rings. There would be no one else.
That's fair. I personally don't need it.
Sure. Anyway, Ben, I'm sorry I cut you off. So why don't you?
No, I was gonna say, because like this is a prequel, and I do want to agree with Ryan about how we need less Lord of the Rings, bring in more Silmarillion, because this is the Silmarillion and the appendices are what the show is based off of. We have the main Lord of the Rings stuff. I mean, I'm glad they're bringing in characters from the Lord of the Rings that we know of, like Isildur, Galadriel. I mean, obviously Galadriel, but I also want to agree with Ryan. It's like, as much as I'm like cool Gandalf, at the same time, and this is going to what I was saying earlier about not being as interested in some character stories, Nori's story with the stranger, sorry, freaking gardener's outside. Okay. That's the one story of this I'm actually least interested in.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm don't get me wrong, I like the story. I find it fine, but I'm more interested in what Galadriel is doing in Numenor. I'm more interested in what the other guy and the people in the Southlands, that elf, whose name I totally forgot, who is a badass, and I freaking love him.
Yes.
And I'm interested in more in those stories than I am with the Hobbits and the Caravan. I like it. Do not get me wrong. I still enjoy it, but technically it's my least favorite aspect of the show. I like Nori as a character because I could see her as being like a very, very far ancestor of the Baggins, because she's the one who wants to go out and explore. She's the one who wants to go out and find things and help other people. Whereas the rest of the Hardfoots are like, yeah, no, we gotta stick together. We gotta be like, no, don't follow the path, don't stray from it.
Yeah.
But outside of that, all the other stuff to me is just way more interesting than what's going on with the Hardfoots. That's just a me thing. And I know I've said it like 3 times, but I do like it, but it's the one part of the show I'm the least interested in.
I'll half back you up, Ben. I think the Hardfoot stuff has the strongest character stuff, but I don't necessarily care about them just moving. I love watching the character stuff, but like again, I talk about real estate. There's only 8 episodes. Like them just moving for a lot of these episodes. I'm like and the Wizard is the thing that's keeping me with the Nori stuff that I really like. But like I like all the family stuff, but it's just them moving, and I'm like that's cool, I guess.
I want to touch on some stuff because we're talking about the Hardfoots, and the Hardfoots don't exist at this point in time in the historical records. They're appearing far before they were supposed to. Again, time is scrunched, but they still are.
First gen.
But what they've done with the show is created this idea that they were there, they were hiding. So they were not noticed for a long time.
I like that idea a lot.
That is a show invention. This concept of how much they are hiding, the Hardfoot specifically, is this trait for survival, is a way to incorporate them being present for this story without them being of note in historical record. I'm using that also to say that this is why one of the reasons I don't think that the Stranger is any of our known wizards, because they are of historical note. The idea is meant to be that like that whatever's going to happen with them is not going to be on a big enough, not to say that it's not going to be interesting, but not going to be on a big enough scale for us to have the story already.
They can indirectly help without being in the lore.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily believe this is one of our more famed wizards with their encounters kind of thing. Because of that impression on the Hardfoots. I really like the inclusion of the Hardfoots. I find them a breath of levity into the show that I'm not saying it doesn't exist in other places. It does. There is humor in other places, but they have a lot of humor, and it's one of the things that I think the show has done a very good job of balancing the tone of the drama, but also the lightheartedness, and specifically the tones. It's in the other places. It's in Galadriel and Elrond. It's in Elrond and Durin, but that friendship is probably the most important element of thematically of Tolkien's work. Friendship is always the most important thing in Middle Earth. It is the thing that makes the difference in the way that he executes on it. It's Frodo and Sam. It's the fellowship itself. It's all of that is what defines the core of Tolkien's story. And I think importantly,
friend and elf.
I think importantly that he says friend at the door. I am friend of Durin, even though he doesn't say the word, right? It is important to have that element, and I think the Hardfoots are serving a lot of that purpose. That tonally, I think that even though not every moment with them is so moving the plot forward, I guess, it is. I think the absence of those moments, even in a single episode, would deprive it of the tone that makes it feel like, I am in Middle Earth.
That's a very good point. I do like that. And they did have a really moving funeral sequence. That did almost make me cry.
Oh, I really like
that. That was really, really moving. And I really like her dad too. That's a good Shire.
I think for none of these characters existing prior to them writing this show, the Hardfoots are impressively well made.
And I played Lord of the Rings online, and I've been to Brandyfoot Farms. I've been to your farms, so like they make it eventually. They make it.
I really the dialogue really sings to me when we're with the Hardfoots, and so I won't back up then, as it were, and say that the Hardfoots are the most compelling thing for me in the show. I think, Ryan, you said Durin is the MVP. I think it's Nori. I really love Nori. I really love her story. I really like her. And maybe I'm just predispositioned to like hobbits, halflings, Hardfoots, whatever you want to call them, in this kind of situation, because of how much I like Lord of the Rings. Like that could be. But I really like it. I'm really invested in it. Whenever we're not with them, I'm wondering what's going on with them. I would honestly have liked a show just about them, quite frankly. I like the show that we got, but I really, really like the Harfoot story. The elves are the ones that I have trouble with. Not necessarily Galadriel. I think she's getting better, but the other guy.
Elrond?
No, the other guy.
The guy from the
Sorry, Sparks has said it twice. Sparks has said it twice now. What'd you say?
The High King?
No, not Gil-galad. By the way, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Oh, a non-deer.
Yeah, the guy who was captured by the orcs.
The soldier, the warrior.
Our black elf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't care.
The guy with the illegitimate kid, definitely.
Don't care.
Oh, I think he's rad.
He's the one that I struggle with the most.
Mm-hmm.
As far as his story and his inclusion in the story. I'm just not quite there yet. And even in the beginning, I wasn't there with Galadriel. So like maybe and now I am. So like maybe that'll change as the story goes on. I'm fully willing to do it. But like for me, it's like Nori, her story, and then Durin.
I'll tell you what, I like him. I won't defend him as hard as other characters, but I do find him in some of the most interesting situations because he's where we get to meet all the orcs. And all the orcs look better than they've ever looked. Every single orc is distinct and unique and has personality, and it's all practical. That's where we meet Adar. So like, even if I don't necessarily love like Soldier Boy, everything surrounding him I love seeing. So I can't give him up because then all the orc shit's gone, and that's like the cool shit.
I agree with that. I even say like, you know, he has a couple of moments in episode 3 where he has where he like sees like I guess his like tower mates who I did not recognize at first. And when their prison breakout scene, very good scene, awesome action scene.
When he watches him get over the hill and then he gets shot with the arrows, just
love it.
Devastating.
Yeah.
So I will back up Brandon because at first I did not like Andir a whole lot. I was like, who's this guy? Why are we watching this? And then when he was captured by the orcs, that's when when he gets captured and or even before when they see that town. Him and Bronwyn, the lady that he likes, obviously, when they descend upon that town and it's completely deserted and destroyed, that's when I'm like, oh, what do we have here? Like the plot thickens. He gets captured, and that whole prison scene, I love. I absolutely adore that scene, especially with when the Tower Master is yelling to the orcs about the tree, and he kills his friend from drinking the water, just so like surprise. I love the entirety of that scene, and to me that was the turning point. I was like, oh no, I am invested in this character now. I want to see how he survives, how he helps the town survives, and even I don't like Theo at all. Theo sucks, but once he gets the hilt of that blade, I'm like, oh, okay.
That's a cool
but here's the thing.
blade.
But here's the thing, Ben. I'm more interested in the hilt than I am the kid.
Oh yeah, me too. Yeah. Oh yeah, me too. Me 100% me too.
See, like,
I care more about that sword hilt than I do that kid. That kid sucks.
See, that's the thing. Just because that kid has that hilt doesn't mean that I'm endeared to the kid. I don't give a shit what happens to that kid right now. I care about what's going to happen to that hilt, regardless of whether or not the kid is involved.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that one, bud.
Talking about nature earlier, and there was a really nice scene where he's like, "I'm sorry, bud, I'm gonna have to cut you down."
Yeah,
so that's a single tier.
Andir, yeah. Oh god, yeah. His the guy who was like the head of the tower. I don't know the character's name, but he's the elf who was like the one who gets shot with the arrows, and he says to the orcs like, "This tree was here long before you crawled from the earth. It deserves its place to stay." And they're like arguing to just go around it. Yeah, when Andir goes up and cuts it, brutal.
There's some.
He does it to see the tree life.
Yeah, he does it to save the homies. There's some like
I love it.
There's some really good spooky shit happening with the orcs too. Like there's specifically the shot where the kid's looking underground and then like an orc eye pops out and it does a thing where like they glow in the dark. And there's one shot like in the forest where you see an orc pop out and his like glowing eye pops out. I'm like, oh yeah, and like Angel gets grabbed through the vines. I'm like, oh my god, there's some good shit. An entire tunnel system covered with like leather, so like they can like hide as they're traveling.
And human skin.
And human. Oh yeah, it's probably human skin.
This is J.A. Buena directed. I think directed the second episode. I probably directed the first one too. But the tunnel sequences are where I really felt his presence as a director very much. He likes working with the big kind of black areas with like the circular light sources coming. And the scene where they used Andrea, right? That's the guy's name. When he gets grabbed and pulled by the orcs, I thought that was a really good scene. Not too crazy about the character right now, but I like the scenes that involve him sometimes.
I think Andrew's great. I think he's cool.
I definitely think he's serving our like more like John Wick protagonist. Like there's not a lot to him yet, but like I think his lady's pretty cool. I like that he's trying to be a good dad, even though his kid sucks real bad. So like that's enough for me. Oh yeah.
I'll be right back.
During the dwarven scenes, there's some real good. You brought up some real good Peter Jackson shots. Yeah. The dwarves laughing, and it's just like a
oh. So the way they frame on like
big
down
nose.
Here and on their nose and like that's exactly how Jackson.
Yeah.
They are trying to capture a lot of Jackson's cinematic style. They do it with some of those frames of dwarves, some of the same frames with orcs, but for a different effect.
Yeah,
and the way that they handle slow motion, especially for like sad moments or tragic turning moments.
Yeah.
And it's not like full slow motion. It's just like that mildly moved down that Jackson would do, like when Gandalf fell in Fellowship or moments like that. They are capturing that cinematic style that Jackson had with all those moments of those framings and the slow motion and all these different things.
Yeah.
It really, really works.
Can we talk about the dwarves for a bit? Because I
love the dwarves.
Dude, Durin.
I love the dwarves. I love Durin, but you know what? You know who's my favorite dwarf of all of them?
Is it his wife?
His wife. I
Dude,
love
his
Disa
wife's
so much. I don't know what happened. I don't know why I connect with Disa so much, but I freaking love her. I will die for her. She is like the coolest. Like the second she came on screen and saw Elrond, and she looks at Dora and goes, "He's staying." I just love all the dwarves. I love them so much.
Dwarves are super cool. I always love seeing because again, like elves operate differently, humans operate differently. Like I want to see how dwarves operate, and like they're able to sing to the mountains to point out where the minerals are. And that there's a scene like they're beautifully singing, but then they like harmonize, and it becomes like a real ring. And it's like, oh, it's shaking the mountain. That's just cool shit. That's just cool shit. I love it.
When the mine shaft breaks and Elrond is witnessing Disa singing, and he sees like the sand, like the very loose dirt in the sand, just like shake and harmonize, kind of like how the opening sequence moves. Mm-hmm. And also, I just love how when Durin is like telling Elrond, he goes, "Sorry, I'm going to do an accent." He goes, "Hand to mountain, you swear to me." I just love how I don't know why. I love the dwarven customs of like when you need to make a promise, hand to the mountain. You swear on the mountain. And I don't know why, but I just love it. I love their connection to the stone. I love their connection to I just love their connection to the rocks. I don't know why I love this so much.
It's just fun.
At this moment in the 4 episodes, if I had to say like what was my favorite story to be following right now, it's Elrond and Durin. I love both of them. I think they're both wonderful. And like everything happening with them is great. The idea of the 20 years doesn't mean as much to an elf, but you missed an entire life I've lived in that time. And
married, 2 kids.
It was a genuine mistake on Elrond's part. It's not something he meant to do. And he really does love Durin.
And I love that moment when he's like, "You missed all this," and the first thing he says is, "Congratulations, my friend."
Yeah.
He does he doesn't try to make it angry. He tries immediately to like, "I messed up and I realized that I blinked and 20 years happened. I'm really sorry."
I think what it is I feel the most of Tolkien so far in Elrond and Durin. Everything about how they're written, about the dwarven customs, the elven customs, the way that the two characters interact with each other, the concept again of thematic friendship that is so present between them. The dialogue I think is the sharpest, probably amongst the two of them. The incorporation, this show has done a good job. I think it's a very beautiful moment. Frankly, we didn't really touch on it much, but when Galadriel is approaching Valinor, there's the concept they introduced early on that when you get close, it is a song from your memory. And for everyone else, all of those other elves that are on the ship, they have never been there. This is a song that is like genetic memory that is triggered in them, but Galadriel has been there, and she doesn't connect with it, and that's why one of the reasons for her.
That is like It's so beautiful. Like the gates opening up, like beautiful
stuff. But importantly, just the focus on like incorporating song is important to these characters and being present. That is a Tolkien thing. I think they do it very well with the dwarves, as you brought up, like singing to the rocks and all the things like that. I just think like the story of what we're seeing unfold, the ultimate downfall that we know is coming for the dwarves because they have now found Mithril, and how they are digging too greedy for it, the tragedy of that, but it blossoming in the you know what, it's the best encapsulation of like the Tolkien stuff I think being done with Durin and Elrond is the tree, the sapling that Elrond gave to him, and he says, I see you've been taking care of it, and she says, waters it, tends to it, treats it like our third child, and every other dwarf thought no thing would be able to grow in a place this dark. And yet there it is. And Elrond even responds with the like, anything would thrive under the love of your home. That is all so purely Tolkien. I think that's why the Elrond Durin stuff is just like making my heart sing completely.
I'm not familiar with the actor who plays Elrond, but I think that dude's crushing it.
Yeah,
that dude. He carries himself like
played young Ned Stark in Game of Thrones.
Shit, you're right. There you go.
That's where I recognize him from. Holy shit!
Ben, also Adar is Benjen Stark from Game of Thrones as well. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not. Oh man.
Fantasy, baby. It's all
look at these Game of Thrones actors still getting thrown into some amazing fantasy shit. You go, guys. Go.
You look British enough, you can get cast in anything like this, right? I think Elrond is so good. He carried himself with like such a presence, and like I love that he is like he is like, I know when I'm wrong and I'm willing to admit it. Like I'm a good dude and I'm gonna try my best to help my people and I love everyone. Like he seems so genuine. Even if like he has shortcomings. Like he's immediately like, I'm sorry about my shortcomings.
It's important to note that there are enough hints of it. I think that it is going to be something that's at least going to be explored a little bit more in the show. Elrond is not full elf. Elrond is half. He is half
he's Gohan?
He's half human, half elf. And the concept in Tolkien's world is that you kind of have a choice when you are born that way of mortal life or immortal life. Elros is already gone. Elros, who helped create Numenor, and he was Elrond's brother. He chose mortal life and chose to be more like man and connect with them. And Elrond chose, we saw the painting of them, Elrond chose to be more like elf. But there is that moment at the beginning of the show where and there's kind of this undertone of the king pushing him to push Galadriel out is also a thing of, then we'll consider you on the elf council. We'll consider you as part of this. So there's this idea of how he connects to other races that is inherent to Elrond because of his background.
Because at this point, he's not the master of Rivendell.
Right.
And I like the story he talks about his father turned into a star.
Yeah.
I thought that was a really good story. I agree with you, Sparks. I really like the Durin Elrond stuff, and you all talked about how great the guy who plays Elrond is, and he's fantastic. So I was vamping because I forgot what was not Galadriel. What's her name? Aragorn's wife.
Arwen.
She chose a mortal life,
right?
And so like elves can choose to be mortal should they want to.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool concept. I like the parallel there.
And Elrond didn't, and that there's a sadness to that for Elrond because of the recognition of, again, like that's what his brother did. And there's this different concept of like, oh God, can we talk about how good? Sorry, real quick, it just made me think of it. The line Galadriel says to Halbrand of, it would take you more than your lifetime to name all of the people they have taken from me.
Oh yeah,
because of how freaking old she is. I was like, that's so good. That's such a good line.
I have to keep reminding myself as I am watching this show that these elves are truly immortal. They live for thousands upon thousands. Unless you take a sword to them, it's thousands upon thousands of years old. I have to keep reminding, even that famous line from Lord of the Rings is like, I was there, Gandalf. I was there 3,000 years ago when the strength of men failed. It's like, shit, this goes for a very long time.
Yeah. Yes. I can see why elves become like rude over time.
Yeah.
Like
that's something that I'm very interested in seeing because the end of the Second Age is marked by the death of Sauron, by the defeat of Sauron, I should say, because Gil-galad, who's the High King of the Elves, and Elendil, who's Isildur's dad, they formed the alliance against Sauron, and that was the final alliance of men and elves that everyone talks about. It was Elrond and Isildur who had the chance to destroy the One Ring once and for all, and Isildur was like, you know what, I'm going to keep it. Thanks, Phil.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. I think that like the show provides such a wonderful opportunity of being able to explore the concept of what that means, like whether it's the absent-mindedness of the friendship with mortal beings, or the long gestating tragic loss that has just been growing and growing for the length of time that you are around. And I do think it's another thing that we'll explore in the show is the fact that Galadriel is in a sense very different from a lot of the elves, because there's, I think, maybe a handful of other elves around right now who are from the first age, and it's mostly just down to her. That's such a weight. She is one of the only elves that remembers what Valinor actually is, and coming over and like
just
what life was like, what life was like before the trees were destroyed by Morgoth and all that.
Speaking of that flashback scene, the trees,
oh god, so good.
That flashback was so good. It reminded me so much of like when you watch Fellowship of the Ring, and it's like, here's what happens at the end of the second age. I'm like, cool. Now we're watching the show. Here's what happens in the first age, and I'm like, it's just nice little history lessons.
That's what I really like, the idea of like, there's kind of been this talk a lot about like Lord of the Rings, like where did they go at the end of Lord of the Rings? What does the end of the third age mark? Like all the elves left Middle Earth at the end of the third age. Where did they go? And I'm glad we finally got to see that location. They went to they went back to Valinor. Eventually, all the elves went to Valinor, and we got to see Valinor for the first time.
I kind of want to piggyback off that to touch on a point that I think it's just something good to keep in mind as we are watching what is going to happen with Sauron, particularly like deceiving mortals. When the gods, specifically the highest god of the story of the Lord of the Rings, creates men are created mortal because the concept of death is considered a gift. It is an ability that the elves don't have naturally to reassess and connect with the cosmos at large. And men and dwarves are given that gift, but they are tricked by Sauron over time to not see it that way, to see it as a punishment rather than a reward. And that is part of how they get corrupted like this.
We don't want to.
There is a concept in Tolkien's overall like stretch of work that immortality is in a way sort of a hard path, not necessarily a cursed life, but a hard path to follow, and that your end only comes in tragic ways rather than natural. And that men and dwarves were meant to be given that when they were created later on as a gift to separate them and allow them that opportunity, because they were not given Valinor. Valinor being a land, not necessarily heaven. It is a literal land. It is where they came from originally, their home. But men and dwarves did not have Valinor. So they were given that instead. And I just think that's going to be nice to keep in mind as we go through it.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious if we will be doing any time jumps.
I wouldn't rule out at least one, but probably just one.
Yeah.
There won't, I don't think there'll be anything too big, mostly because of our introduction of the Isildur and Isildur.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I brought up, and like everyone's speculating like this will do the Rogue One thing. It will lead up into right before Lord of the Rings, and I'm curious if that is the trajectory. So like Sauron stuff is not going to come to a head anytime soon, which would make sense. Like it'll be a slow burn. The thing that I've seen most people say about the show that they think it's moving really slowly. And I won't disagree with that, but I don't think that's also, again, like dramas and things can be slow and not be bad. With 8 episodes, I see why people are having problems with it. I personally am totally fine with it because I know this show's probably going to last a while, and I'd rather them tell the story they want to tell than feel like they have to rush something.
Yeah.
I don't think the show will end up. I think the show will end with. I think the show will end at the end of the second age. And I hope that they can get there, because this show is very expensive. So every season, like Amazon is going to be very curious how well it's doing. It's not going to be something.
It's doing insane numbers, so I think they're going to be okay.
But it's always every season. Amazon is going to look at this very carefully, being like, okay, do the viewers justify the numbers? And so, like this season, I think we're safe. Next season, I think we're safe. So I'm hoping that we can get there seasons from now.
Keep it up.
We don't know the amount of seasons they have planned. We do know that they know where they're going with the whole story. And the second season's set to start production soon. I suspect at worst, Amazon would tell them, okay, third season's your last though.
Yeah.
Or fourth season's your last. I don't see the show going beyond 5 at most.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think what they did very well is capturing the sense of, I don't think that you could flesh out Middle Earth this way in a film. And I think it's utilizing a show very well. I don't feel like it's made like Brandon's pet peeve. I don't feel like it's made like a long film.
Yeah.
But that being said, the thought and quality put behind it into the writing and the construction of the show itself on a visual level. I mean, God, the beauty of that shot where Halbrand dives into the water to save Galadriel, immensely gorgeous.
That's the one I want to see.
Is it just real quick, Brandon? Is a level above what even like the high quality shows like House of the Dragon, frankly.
This show looks way better than House of the Dragon.
This is reaching for movie cinematic level in its structure of filming that just like even highest budget shows don't normally go for. And it's trying to capture that feeling, but it's not trying to trick you into thinking it's a movie.
Yeah.
It is fully embracing its episodic storytelling.
This is the thing that bugs me about the Marvel shows, right? Like the Marvel shows, for the most part, look a lot cheaper than their movie counterparts. I mean, some would say the movies are starting to look cheaper too, but whatever. The idea of like, when you're making a show like this and you say we want this to feel like a movie, this is the kind of thing I want you to strive for. I want you to strive to make it look cinematic. I don't need an 8-hour long movie cut up into 45-minute pieces. You want to make a movie? I want to make a TV show as a movie. You strive for the cinematic, you strive for the cinematic visualization of a film, not the cinematic structure of a film.
Right. I think that this show just it's unlike, I feel, other shows. Like it just doesn't feel like when I sit down and watch something that's even like of the high caliber of like prestige streaming series. This feels different. This almost exists on the equivalent level of the movies without being a movie itself.
I actually think it can rival a lot of the Hobbit. Certainly, I think when you look at something like that, like when you look at something like the show, you can very easily kind of put them together and not know which was which.
Yeah, I love the creature designs that we have so far. The wargs.
I didn't like the warg, honestly.
Oh, I love him.
The Wyrm.
I did like him. That's
the sea serpent, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The troll.
Snow troll.
Obviously, we touched on the orcs. The orcs all look incredible.
Another scene where like it felt like Peter Jackson filmmaking with like how the camera is moving, like when she was killing that troll. I'm like, yeah. You one shot that guy.
Real quick, what I want to point out, and you pointed it out too when we were watching it about the warg. What got me about it is that they went out of their way to make sure that it looked like an animal, not like a vicious creation. It has the like innocent eyes of an animal. It doesn't have sinister.
It's got big,
it doesn't
like,
have sinister
eyes.
Representation. Like it is a animal that exists only for the malice of what the orcs are doing. It's an animal. It just is an animal, and they are using it, but it is. There was more thought put into its design than there generally
I like his big bug eyes a lot.
Yeah.
I just felt it was over designed. There was a lot going on with that design that I just couldn't really gravitate towards it.
Gravity.
Anyway.
Oh man.
Anyway, Theo's a piece of shit. We haven't talked about him much.
Yes, I know him.
There's a reason why.
He just sucks.
He likes
He finds every way to make his mom's life harder.
His mom's awesome.
And his mom is the best.
Yeah.
And he's just the shittiest little shit. And he's probably going to be bad in some way. And okay. He'll be corrupted by the blade, I suspect.
My hope is that like the blade is going to like corrupt him and then like then he will be like a beacon for them to like they'll find him and then he'll get taken and then maybe something bad will happen. Yeah, maybe. I usually don't wish murder upon people, but you already got stabbed by a blade, so how much longer you got? Well,
I was just looking at my notes and I wrote down. I forgot I wrote this. It was so late. I go, oh my god, the High Elf King is Abe Lincoln.
He is Abe
Lincoln. I really
leader.
We did touch on Numenor. I really like the realization of Isildur and his family, his father, his sister. I think they're all really well realized characters.
I love Elendil. I think he's great.
I think he's great too.
Elendil's he's like besides Durin, Elendil's my favorite.
He's like if they had like unlimited budget, they would cast Brad Pitt in that role. Like I love that. Like that's what we're talking about, right? Like the guy with like the shoulder. Yeah, that dude's awesome. That dude's I'm waiting for him to be an asshole, and I'm like, you can't. You're too good. You're way too good for this show. No way, bro.
So one of the things I want to talk about the show, and I did not realize it because I knew there was. Now, when I say this, I mean in the context of the show, not with all the stuff that's going out around it. So just want to make that clear. I was surprised about how much racism there is in the show. Racism meaning like humans hate the elves.
Oh yeah.
All the stuff in Numenor is like, man, elves suck. Screw those guys.
Right. So specifically, and it's like two different kinds of resentment, right? Because you have the people of the Southlands who have been monitored and watched and distrusted by the elves, and they have a different kind of disparaging hate for the elves. Whereas Numenor feels like the elves covet their resources at this point, that they have flourished beyond what elves anticipated. And part of it is all driven by they believe that elves will bring about their downfall. So they want to just self-isolate. And those are two different kinds of resentment and two different kinds of hate, which I really appreciate. I appreciate that it's more complex with each indication of like where you're from, how you interact with the world around you, what your kind of level of distrust and hate can be.
Yeah.
Well, what I also felt was interesting about that with Numenor isn't necessarily that Numenor also feels like, especially the Queen, I think, and maybe even like regents before her, that talked about how the elves kept saying that they like felt like the elves were like, this was, you have this because of us, right? You have Numenor because you sided with us. You were gifted Numenor because you sided with us, but like they're like, no, we earned this.
Right.
This was we earned this. Right. Yes. We earned this right to have this city.
Right. There is an amount. This is just true of Tolkien's work, especially of elves at this time. Of elves don't necessarily dislike all men. There is a distrust because, again, like we talked about that betrayal earlier. But even before that happened, like there's a concept of like elves thinking of. You could read this in two ways. You could read it as like a jealousy of their gift of being able to die, as considered a reward, which some of them are aware was given as a reward or believe that. But the other interpretation is that they do see them as lesser forms because they don't live through as much. They don't understand as much because they literally can't because their lives end so quickly. And that creates this like lesser interpretation of them. Yes, Ben.
Yeah. The reason why I want to bring that up is because of, damn it, Isildur's dad, the guy
Elendil.
Elendil, thank you. Is because when Galadriel is talking to Elendil, and Elendil speaks in Elvish, she's like, "Not all hate you," and she's all like, "What?" Like even his name translated is Elf Friend, and the Queen of Numenor or the Queen Regent of Numenor brings that up, and he's all like, "Oh," he's like playing it close to the chest, but really he's like, "Hey, I respect the old ways, and also I know you're here because of pure happenstance. I'm going to try and help you out." So it's because of that. It's like, not all people hate the elves, and he shows us like, hey, around Numenor, Elvish is still, you can find it. There's still Elvish statues here written in Elvish. Here's one. It's small, but here it is.
Look at me.
Here's just a little Elvish for you. That do it for you.
I really appreciate the belief system that the people who function and work on Numenor is of the sea is always right. I think that's a great little presentation. They made their world feels so fleshed out and real. That's part of what the show's doing so well. Everywhere feels like so fleshed out and real. And they are two different types of fantasy shows. I'm acknowledging that up front. Just going back to the base roots of the books themselves, Martin established a certain kind of story and Tolkien established a different one. But Tolkien has always focused on incorporating the concept of living in the world for the regular people, and that it's a presence you understand. And Martin did not. Martin is focused on the characters that are the characters you're following and the characters that are in the upper. You get an idea of like what like life is like, but you are not usually focusing on the common folk. Common folk are incredibly important in Tolkien's story, and I think that they are very present and very well formed in all the different iterations that we are experiencing in the Rings.
Well, that's why. I mean, that's why the main character of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit are hobbits. The most innocuous creature in all the land is also the savior of the universe. Like, you know, that's a really important thing to Tolkien that I always resonated with.
You have like in Lord of the Rings, you have Aragorn, you have Legolas and Gimli. These, I would say, noble. I mean, obviously one of them's a king, but you have these nobles. But the ones who truly save Middle Earth are just these two nobody hobbits. Not to say that they're not nobodies. I mean, but what they have no noble bloodline. There isn't. I don't mean this in a mean way. There's nothing really special about it. Yeah, there's nothing really super special about them, but they're the ones. The regular people are the ones who save all of Middle Earth.
It's kind of like why I really liked Doctor Who when Russell T Davies was running it, because the idea of Doctor Who picking up a companion, picking up a nobody, quite frankly, a nobody could be the most important thing, the most important person in the world, and that was so special to me growing up. It's why I gravitated to the stories that I did, and quite frankly still do. And I think that's in the DNA of this show as well. You did bring up Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, and I think all but Gimli. I think Gimli is the only one not of noble blood. I think Legolas and Aragorn are both heirs to nobility.
But Durin is his ancestor, isn't he?
No, I don't think Durin is his ancestor. I tried to look it up, but I didn't see anything.
Well, it's thousands of years, a long ass lineage.
Gloin is his father. We know Gloin is his father. His father was part of Thorin's company, but that's as far as his lineage that we know of.
Okay. Real quick, I just want to. I think you guys are making great points on what I was saying as well. I want to spotlight like it's the inroad to seeing what life is like for all the people in the Southlands, right? Not just like a key figure or a representative, but like we have such a fully fleshed out idea of life of the Hardfoots. And this is how Tolkien's work is designed. It's designed to give you a clear idea of the sense of community for all these different creatures. That's why he's anecdotal. That's why there's tons and tons and tons of notes of names of people, different things that they did in the communities that they existed in, for elves, for humans, for dwarves. But I think the show is doing such a good job of making me feel like I fully understand the moment I get there, like how these people work together, how they communicate with each other. Like Hardfoot feels like a fully fleshed out, full community to me.
Are they moving
Numenor feels like a whole thing. Southlands feels like a whole place to me.
Yeah.
And that's something that is rare to capture well, I think, in general, but especially in fantasy stories. This idea of like the fully fleshed out sense of community, not just focusing on your key characters.
And I think you're right about. I do want to. I mentioned real quickly the Harfoots when they're revealed and they had like all their carts like pop up and how they've hidden from everything. I think all that is so cool and so well realized. I loved all of that.
It reminded me, I mean, they're like regular people, but for some reason it reminded me of like Labyrinth or Dark Crystal, like Jim Henson puppets, of like things popping up and things getting to normal. I'm like, this is so whimsical. It's really
like
it's well shot,
like all these creatures are just camouflaged, and then the second they're in the clear, they just pop up. You're like, oh Jesus.
I love like the mayor. He's just like, you know, like half like grass thing on his head. He's like, hey, what's up?
I really like their leader. I think he's a really cool character. I want to go back to Numenor real quickly and talk about the almost riot. You know, when the blacksmith is like, oh, all these elves are trying to steal our jobs and blah blah blah.
the almost make Numenor great again.
Yeah.
Oh God.
What I really liked about that was when the like the regent dude comes by and he's just like, come on, we're Numenor. You really think an elf is gonna threaten us? And I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
One elf,
a single elf destroys this entire city. She's like, my job! Like, get out of here.
The tragedy of the wave and the weight of it on the Queen and Galadriel I think it's very well visually realized. This is what does come to pass. Eventually, Numenor is taken by the sea,
and that tree is a descendant of the tree in Minas Tirith.
Notably, so is Linden. Linden and Numenor are both taken by the sea.
Hell yeah!
Later on, but yeah, I think they're doing a great job just setting up the sense of Numenor.
Real quickly, the dude who like quells the riot, the guy who's like working with the queen. It's so interesting because I looked up that dude because like part of what I was doing watching the show was pausing it a lot and making an hour and 10-minute episodes feel like 2 hours. I found out his history in Tolkien's works, which might not come to pass because of how condensed the show has made it, but that dude's not a good dude. And so I was like I was really endeared to this guy when he like quelled the riot and he's like helping the queen. He's like, no, I'm like, I don't know how I feel about you right now.
He is not thrilled about them deciding to embrace Galadriel at the end. Not thrilled about it whatsoever.
That's awesome. That's such a good scene. She's like, I personally walked her out myself. She walks right back into the room.
Yeah.
And we're homies now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, because when she starts saying the way, the tree starts crying. The tree cries because the tree is like the eyes of the Valar, and then of course why can I not remember his effing name? Elendil, thank you. For frack's sake, I gotta
Bro, we're watching 2 shows with the craziest names. Like, I don't know. You're fine.
I mean, I was even talking about how much I love like the hardcore like accented names in the show. It's like it'd be great if I could remember half of them at the goddamn time. But yeah, both of them look at each other and they realize, oh, we effed up. And then when Galadriel walks back in and the Queen Regent is saying like, we will go. Also, one other thing about how much I love the show with the special effects, I love the Seeing Stone scene. Like how it cracks and then it just breaks up and you get to look inside the stone. I'm like, that is one of the coolest effects I've seen on the show. I just love how they visualize it. But yes, what I was saying earlier about how the show has moments of cinema, it's the ending of episode 4 when Galadriel walks in and the Queen Regent says, I am personally escorting the elf back to Middle Earth and we will help our brethren in the Southlands. And then Isildur's friends are the ones who's like, I will serve. It's a very I am Spartacus moment. And then Isildur finally says, oh, my friends are serving. This is my way to make up to them. I will serve. So many other people, when they see their brethren take the first step on serving the queen and being her protectors in Middle Earth, I'm like, this is the beginning of Gondor. Yes. I'm loving this shit.
So I've got a question to go back to Elrond and Durin. Why was Elrond holding Mithril like it was the One Ring? What do we think that's about?
It's an undiscovered important thing. Yeah, showing its importance.
It becomes like the most powerful protective armor. So
no, I realize what it becomes, but there's something that Elrond does, and they frame it like Bilbo holding the One Ring, in Lord of the Rings, which I thought was very interesting. It's got to be on purpose. It cannot be an accident. It's got to be there's something that Elrond is thinking that we're not privy to when he's holding Mithril. He's looking at it and he's like,
I don't think that's it. If I may, I believe that the reason it's being framed that way is to tell the audience, like, reminder that this is dangerous. This is the thing that leads to the downfall of Khazad-dûm. This is a problem. It's not about what Elrond's thinking, but it's telling you, audience. It's framing for you, audience, because they can't do it with Durin because Durin has already looked upon Mithril. He is the person who's looking upon it for the first time, and it's telling you, audience, remember, this is bad. This is good, but this is bad.
Like, sorry.
Yes, Ben Bagman of the FakeNerd podcast. You can go.
Thank you. Quick little anecdote. Every time, like when we are introduced to Mithril and they're talking about it, I can't help but constantly think of quotes from Lord of the Rings. Like Balin tries to rebuild Khazad-dûm. He's this close. The dwarves dug too deep and they awoken the dark and they awoken the Balrog that eventually kill the dwarves in the mines of Moria.
But that's the second time that happened.
Yeah.
This is the first. We're going to see the first time.
Yeah, so yeah, Mithril is very like even when Doran says it's perilous to mine, it's like, yeah, no shit. 4 of your dudes almost die.
It will be interesting. It will be interesting if we really see a look at the Balrogs. The Balrogs, which have been recessed into the earth since the first age.
They're in the trailer, so we're seeing a Balrog of the season.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I love that, like, it's like a beautiful like foreshadowing of like for all of the Dwarven Empire. It's like the first time that they start mining the shit that there's a cave in. The first time that they're really trying it, they have a cave in and 4 people almost die. Right. I'm like, cool. We got a little bit. Now let's do it the entire mountain. I'm like, you guys, this should have been your lesson right here.
But see, what's interesting about this is that the king has closed the vein. Mm-hmm. Like the king won't let people mine Mithril anymore. So
King's gonna die probably.
That's what I'm thinking of. Like, oh, that's a good point. The king could die and Durin could reopen it. But that's what I was thinking of. Like, are the elves going to learn of Mithril, because we know that the elves use Mithril in Lord of the Rings? Are they going to learn about it and they're going to push the dwarves to go mining for it? And that's why we see Elrond kind of do that thing.
I think Elrond is going to realize the potential, and he's going to inadvertently cause the destruction.
I wonder if the only, do we know what the hammer that Celebrimbor uses is made of?
No.
I wonder if the only thing that could forge the rings needed to be made of Mithril.
Ooh, spicy.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, Celebrimbor could be like, "Hey, I need this ore. Can you reopen that vein?" Which leads to them awakening the Balrog for the first time.
I do think it'll less be that
Celebrimbor's Mithril hammer.
There you go. There it is. Okay, Elrond. So it's not so much. I don't think it'll so much be Elrond though. I do think it will be Sauron. Like, we are going to know that Sauron is pushing this agenda forward. Like, I do think it'll be, Celebrimbor will decide he needs the Mithril. I don't think Elrond will break his vow to Durin. I guess that's the thing I need to clarify.
He'll be the middleman and pass the knowledge.
I don't think Elrond will do that. I think someone else is going to let that secret out, and Sauron will take it.
I can already see Elrond is like, I gotta tell Celebrimbor about this, and then Celebrimbor is like, oh, I need that shit. And he goes and talks to the king. He's like, I will make you the richest person on this Middle Earth if we do this. And then bad stuff.
Something will happen, yeah.
That's it's spicy.
And that was, so what's interesting to me about going a little bit, rewinding a little bit to what Spark said about like the Balrog, because we know that the Balrog is in the show. We've seen it in the trailer. That's the kind of the one to me where I'm like, because I heard, because in the research I've just been doing, the Balrog was awakened in the beginning of the Third Age and did not awaken in the Second Age. So kind of like moving that back is interesting, and I'm excited to see it. I just, at the end of the day, I'm just excited to see the Balrog.
Again, yeah, time condensing Third Age could just mean the end of the Second Age.
Yeah,
right. So like I almost wish they didn't show the Balrog in the trailer, because now we know that shit's opening up.
It could be just another. It could be. They could choose to do another flashback to the Balrogs of the First Age.
Good point.
As they represent their existence.
Good fair point.
They're very. God,
guys. So that big fight where the men betray everybody, Morgoth also unleashes like his full might of the Balrogs, which is like 13 of them, and they're all led by one that's like 5 times the size of the rest.
It turns into a real-time strategy game at that point. I'm just now clicking Balrogs everywhere.
That would be insane.
Also, I don't know why, but somehow I fell into a little rabbit hole when I was scrolling TikTok one day, and it was about the big-ass spider. Because there's a spider in Middle-earth, I forgot the name, that's actually more dangerous than Morgoth himself. And Morgoth aligned with the spider, and the spider was like, okay, yeah, you're cool, so I wonder if we're going to see any more of those giant spiders.
So she helped Morgoth steal the Cimmerils, and Morgoth she wanted more from Morgoth, and Morgoth didn't want to give her anything more because she was ultimately going to start asking for the Cimmerils herself. So Morgoth wounds her enough and betrays her that she recesses into a land where she gives birth to a lot of the giant spiders we know exist in the world of Middle-earth later, like the one that we encounter in the Lord of the Rings. She gives birth to them, but she dies in that land. Okay. She doesn't exist anymore. So she was like the great giant spider. She is fundamentally... Morgoth could not have stolen the Cimmerils and destroyed the trees that we see in the flashback without her help. She is instrumental to him having been able to pull that off, but she is at this point long dead.
Fun fact, Shiloh in the Middle-earth games is a sexy lady. anaconda legs.
And this isn't really. I want to say that this next thing I want to mention real quick is a testament to how good the show is and how excited I am for other fantasy stuff coming up. Because you guys know that when I watch one or I experience one piece of media, I want to go to the other things. Like I watch Game of Thrones, I want to play Elden Ring. I'm watching The Rings of Power, I want to read The Hobbit. I want to read the books and the play the games and stuff like that. But also one thing that makes me really excited, and it's only coming out next year, which kind of makes me a little mad that it's still so far away, is when Magic the Gathering releases the Lord of the Ring cards and they release the set. Because, God, I'm going to build a lot of decks now, and I am looking forward to how much and how many characters are going to be in those cards that are coming out.
Oh my God, Ben! They didn't just do like Lord of the Rings; they also announced like a Warhammer 40K entire pack, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep getting away with this.
I am just going to drop so much money when that set releases, because I want to build a lot of decks with the Lord of the Rings decks, because I think there's so much they could do. They could put the giant spider as like a legendary creature. They could put obviously Saruman, Morgoth.
There's a lot of characters that can do.
There's a lot of this shit, and honestly, just watching the show makes me more excited, and not just what's going to happen in the show, but what's going to happen outside of it as well. As weird as that might sound, but once again, Rings of Power, I am excited to watch the show every weekend when a new episode drops. I'm looking at the time and thinking, can I squeeze in that hour and 12-minute episode before I go to work? Can I squeeze it in? Probably not. But either way, I'm excited, and this show is like bringing it just like knocking it out of the park for me.
This is the kind of show that I kind of miss in the streaming era. The kind of show that's like really dense. Like it's an hour and 12, and they pack a lot of stuff into it. Like they use that real estate. They really like shove in as much as they can in each episode. And I think that reminds me a lot of like the early streaming shows that were really popular that would do the same thing. That would like the first time we saw an hour-long show actually be an hour and not just 45 minutes. And because they just stuffed in all that plot that they could. And it was kind of really nice to feel that way again watching a streaming show, because I haven't in quite a while.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I was gonna say Hot D is not a streaming show, but I was like, I feel like I'm getting doubly fed with an hour long dense fantasy shit. I'm like, God, what a time to be alive, for real.
Real quick, just everything in Middle Earth in the chat. They just forgot Ungoliant. Ungoliant is the spider that I was referring to, who goes with Melkor at the time, not Morgoth, but Melkor when he destroys the trees and takes the Cimmerils, and before he is named Morgoth by the elves. Ungoliant is hinted at in the Silmarillion to have stayed where she was in the land and devoured herself over time.
Ooh, yummy.
Oh.
We love cannibalism.
Though it's never clearly like stated 100% exactly what happened to her. That the idea is that she ended up devouring herself.
Yeah. I mean, also they might bring in Ungoliant, or they might mention Ungoliant later down the show. Like, who knows? Once again, this is just the first season, and we have. Well, obviously, we're getting season 2, and who knows how many more after that. But I will agree. I want to say, I forgot who, either Brandon or Sparks said 5 seasons is probably the magic number.
Sparks, how long do we think until the rings are introduced in the show?
Season 2.5.
Yeah, a while, I think, because you still have to establish all the kings of men.
Yeah, we haven't even got the.
All of the kings, like all the leaders of the elves and everything, have to feel like they are firmly there before we're going to get the rings divvied out to them.
Right, because because in the elves, we know it's Galadriel, Elrond, and Gil-galad who get the rings, and eventually Gandalf. And Elrond and it wouldn't make sense at this time for Elrond or Galadriel to have the rings.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be some time before the rings are divvied out.
Yeah, that's the reason I suspect the time it's going to happen, because we got to establish a lot of.
Let's suppose this is a 5-season show. I would say it's probably season 4. And then season 5 is your like the fallout of them having the rings and then finding out about them.
I think like the Death Star plans in Attack of the Clones, I think the idea of the rings will get introduced earlier than the actual conception.
Yeah.
I was going to say like maybe the season 1 finale would then be just like possibly.
So I want to do this.
Well, maybe not like laying out the plans, but then like Celebrimbor thinking, I was like, you know what, there could be, I can make something like some form of jewelry, a ring maybe, like just name drop, just saying the word ring, and then going on from there.
Yeah, I think it would be, because what's kind of interesting about, and I did a lot of looking, and apparently the 9 rings that are given to the men, we don't know all the names of the men who have of the kings. So, and because there are no kingdoms for of men in Middle Earth at this point, it will be interesting to see how those characters come about.
But there are supposed to be in some cases, like Halbrand, who we know is supposed to be his people's king.
That's true.
So this is the thing I think we're going to uncover, which is again like why I think Halbrand's going to be an interesting character. I do think Halbrand may end up being our Witch King.
Oh yeah.
Which would be really interesting.
Because we theoretically probably only know 2 ring bearers from the men, Elendil and Halbrand.
Yeah.
Outside of that, who knows?
Maybe 7 more.
And then Durin very likely to inherit a ring as well.
Yeah.
The 5 went to the dwarf. 7.
3. It goes 3, 7, 9.
5 golden rings.
Yeah. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. I'm going to real quick. I'm going to read a passage from the 2 Towers that I think we should all keep in our heads as the show goes forward. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
This feels like mostly what this show is drawing from. Then all listened while Elrond in his clear voice spoke of Sauron and the Rings of Power, and their forging in the second age of the world long ago. A part of his tale was known to some there, but the full tale to none. And many eyes were turned to Elrond in fear and wonder as he told of the elven smiths of Ergion and their friendship with Moria, and their eagerness for knowledge, by which Sauron ensnared them. For in that time he was not yet evil to behold, and they received his aid and grew mighty in craft, whereas he learned all their secrets and betrayed them, and forged secretly in the mountain of fire the one ring to be their master. But Celebrimbor was aware of him, and hid the 3 which he had made, and there was war, and the land was laid waste, and the gate of Moria was shut. Of Numenor he spoke, its glory and its fall, and the return of the kings of men to Middle Earth out of the deeps of the sea, borne upon the wings of storm. Then Elendil the Tall and his mighty sons, Isildur and Anarion, became great lords, and the north realm they made Arnor, and the south realm in Gondor above the mouths of Anduin. But Sauron of Mordor assailed them, and they made the last alliance of elves and men, and the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil were mustered in Arnor.
Okay, so
that's the end of the show.
So yeah, absolutely. So Celebrimbor eventually catches on to what's happening
and hides the elves' rings.
He pulls a Rogue One and puts a failsafe and hides the 3 other rings because it's too late to stop what's happening. He can't just stop the project because we're awesome.
So did the one ring not work on the 3 elven rings?
It's not clear, but it does, like, again, like parsing from small moments that we are allowed to get of the history of this time period. This is specifically where it says Celebrimbor was aware of him and hid the 3 which he had made, and there was war.
Because that's the whole, like, I don't know how true this is. I kind of heard this from third-party sources, but like, Galadriel was corrupted by her ring, and that's why she had the. That's why she was so drawn to the One Ring when we see her in Lord of the Rings.
Well, like I said, in the book version of Galadriel, is very much driven by a desire to rule.
Oh, that's a good point. And that's why she would be drawn to the ring, so she would be a mighty ruler. That's a good point.
I really love the kind of reminding me of like the Galadriel we see in Lord of the Rings. There is a tempest in me moment.
Oh yeah, she's so intense,
so good.
Mordef Clark. She is so intense as an actor. I saw her in Saint Maud recently, and she's like she got really intense eyes, and like she's so talented.
I think they do a really good job. Also, speaking of intensity, the power of the stranger with the shouting and the
like,
movement of things. I think that's all visualized.
It all well. Like implodes into him, like the trees come toward. Yeah.
Oh, I love how they do scale in this.
Yes.
How they are they making everyone look taller or shorter? And I love the attention to detail that you got to make Nori much much smaller than the Stranger, like even smaller than a normal Hobbit or Harfoot would be. Is quite good.
I appreciated the size of the berries.
Yeah.
We see, like the berries are bigger because of their size.
There's a lot of forced perspective in the show that really works that they just don't do in Hollywood anymore, just because it's cheaper to do other things. But like there's one shot specifically, I don't remember which episode, but it's one of the later episodes where Nori is sitting next to the wizard, but I can tell she's sitting really far back to make it look like she's small. And I'm like, I don't even care that I can tell. I like that you're doing it, because that's like what like 5-year-olds do to make like lizard toys big when they try to get. And I'm like, it's just simple filmmaking that I really appreciate.
I really appreciate forced perspective ever since I saw some of the behind the scenes for The Hobbit, and just Ian McKellen is so just done with green screen. He's just like, I don't want to do this. And he's just so upset that he has to be in the green screen. Ever since then I was just kind of like, maybe forced perspective so you don't make your actors go insane.
It's time. It saves you money, saves you time. You literally just move someone back a little bit. Like it works. Simple.
And Lord of the Rings was such a groundbreaking forced perspective film. How it really like made it so that sets would move as the cameras move, because for forced perspective generally you had to keep your camera at a static frame, but you no longer had to do that thanks to Lord of the Rings, like having the sets move with the great stuff. Lord of the Rings is a great movie, guys. I don't know if you know this.
Seeing all the little halflings, like it's so impressive, like how like they're filming in nature, how they're able to make like natural foliage and stuff look like bigger than they are. Like wherever they film, whether I know it's not all fake, but like they still look small in the real world. I'm like, I don't know how you guys are doing this. Like it's really effective. Like everyone seems so tiny, and it's really cute. All right.
Anything else you guys want to add?
No, this doesn't need to be an extended edition version of the podcast. A regular edition.
All right.
The only thing I will add is just how excited I am for the future of not just the show, but also of the seasons coming. I am excited to see. I mean, even though I know technically the end of it, one of the things I love about prequels, like with this and even House of the Dragon, is how exactly these events came to be. How exactly did Sauron trick Celebrimbor to forge the rings? How exactly did the realms of men sprang up in Middle Earth? How exactly did the Southlands, this seemingly beautiful forest area, turn into the hellscape that is Mordor? I am so looking forward to seeing how. I want to see the mountain turn into Mount Doom. I want that volcano shit.
Oh, what's going to happen?
I'm looking forward to this. I am excited to see what's going on, and I'm loving it. I am all in on this right now.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch Friday's episode, which is today.
Yeah. Okay, so that's Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. The first 4 episodes. We'll be back to check in with the show when it is over for episodes 5 through 8. Stay tuned for that. Up until then, you can probably check us out doing Star Wars Andor, which will be part of our 299th episode. And then from then on, as its own Fake Nerds Watch series. Timing requires us to sneak in another Fake Nerds Watch episode in our Fake Nerd podcast episode.
Works for everybody.
There's too many shows dropping 2 episodes at a time.
Whoever did scheduling, I want to yell at you. Not scheduling between us. I mean, scheduling at the TV stations. It's like, yeah, let's put it out this time. It's like, dude, Rings of Power. I was like, yeah, no, put it out anyway.
Again, scheduling might be hard for us, but as long as all of these shows remain good, I'm happy to make it work.
You know what? Yeah, me too. I've been loving She-Hulk, House of the Dragon, Rings of Power. I'm like, I haven't seen Andor yet. I'm gonna watch that when I come home from work tonight. It was like, man, we're eating good. We're eating very good.
Speaking of She-Hulk, that is our other Fake Nerds Watch series that is going on. There are 2 episodes of that covering the first 4 episodes. You can check out 5 and 6 coming soon, probably sometime next week or the week after. So stay tuned for that. Other than that, there's plenty of other Fake Nerds Watches that you can go back through the catalog if you want. There's House of the Dragon, which just you guys just did a House of the Dragon check-in 2 through 5. So check that out as well. Okay, you can of course check out all sorts of other shows if you like this video and you subscribe to this channel, such as Basement Arcade, which is our video game series, Basement Arcade Pause Menu, which is our video game discussion series, Animation Station, and Fake Nerd Book Club. All of which you can find on this channel. If you like this video and you subscribe to this channel, and of course, there's also various audio feeds for some of these shows that you can check out as well. Or you can check out our podcast, our mothership show, the show that everything is under, Fake Nerd Podcast, part of the Fake Nerd family podcast. Fake Nerd Podcast is a show that we do every Sunday live. We do these live recordings. Our 299th episode will be coming soon, or it's already happened, depending on when you watch this, where we've talked about Star Wars and or the first 3 episodes for the latest Star Wars TV series. And coming up, 299 means the one after that is 300. So coming up, guys, is our 300th episode of the podcast. We've been doing this so long. We finally reached episode 300. Honestly, didn't seem like it was going to come. This year has been rough. We've been pushing it back a long time. Our centennial episodes used to be in July. This one's in October. So you can check out that episode. Will be pre-recorded. Our main topic for that episode is going to be a big bumper rebuild of Evangelion movie series. It's going to be long. It's going to be pre-recorded, and we will drop the whole thing the day after, or 2 days after, whenever that can be done. But the live recording for that episode will be just news and book club. So if you want to check out the topic, it will be dropping after that.
Love it.
All right. You can find us on, we talked about a lot of shows. We want to do more shows. Sparks even said up top, there's so many shows we want to do, but we don't get paid to do this. But if you guys want to help us do more shows, if you liked what we did here and you want to see us do it for more shows out there, there's plenty of shows that we want to do. There's plenty of things we want to do. Consider going to our Patreon, supporting us there, or our TeePublic and supporting us there, which you can find linked below, or on our website at FakeNerdPodcast.com. Where you can find all the links to everything, all of our shows, all of our everything. Everything's there. Fake Nerd Podcast on all the social medias. I'm at BT McClure on Instagram and Twitter. You can find me writing for Screen Rant, Atomic Geekdom, and KaiDramaMedia.com. Ben?
You can find me pledging to serve the Queen of Numenor to help the Southlands take their homes back at Ben Magna27 on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And you can also find me writing for Old School Gamer Magazine, Fusion Gaming Magazine, and GoNintendo.com.
Sparks?
You can find me keeping it secret and keeping it safe at Sparks Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty.
Ryan?
You could find me being just extremely thrilled to be in an era of prequels that are really good at DJ Tony Snark 616.
All right, guys. Until next time we see us, stay fake nerds. Oh, I forgot we're doing this live. Shoot. Stay fake nerds.